We have a different kind of service today, but I know that you will all be touched and hopefully inspired to make a difference however you can. Hannah and I met Miss Christy Holler from the Christian ministry Love Life when we went outside of Planned Parenthood in Winston-Salem to try to convince the women going in to not take the life of their babies. This ministry was already there doing that. Miss Christy is out there every Tuesday and Friday, and today we will hear some of the testimonies of what God has done with people who are working for righteousness out of the love that God motivates us with. Would you come now and share with us?
I'll share some statistics about abortion. Over 2,363 children are killed daily by abortion in the U.S. alone. That's over 962,000 children each year. In New York City in 2016, 22,465 black babies were born, but 23,209 black babies were aborted. This means that more black babies were aborted than black babies were born in New York alone. There were 947 babies killed yesterday. There are 947 babies being killed right now, and there will be 947 babies killed tomorrow by Planned Parenthood alone. The abortion pill has resulted in 1,042 women hospitalized, 599 blood transfusions, 69 severe infections, 24 women killed, and 3,700,000 children killed. 30% of all pregnancies, excluding miscarriages, end in abortion. About 1 in 4 women you have encountered has had an abortion. 4 in 10 women were churchgoers. 92% of babies diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted. 60% of women who have had an abortion already have children. Over 64% of women who have had an abortion are pressured or coerced into getting one. 70% of relationships that go through an abortion fail. Women who have had an abortion are 60% more likely to have miscarriages and future pregnancies. Following an abortion, women are 34% more likely to develop anxiety disorders, 37% more likely to have depression, 110% more likely to abuse alcohol, and 155% more likely to commit suicide. The Holocaust resulted in 11 million victims losing their life, while abortion resulted in 73 million victims losing their life worldwide every single year.
Good morning. My name is Karen Nelson, and I'm going to tell you about my experience with the Abounding Grace Ministry and with this family here. So I know that a lot of people have an idea of what would send someone to an abortion clinic, and oftentimes we're wrong in our assumptions, and I was guilty of having that same assumption growing up. You know, I always thought, how could someone do that? How in the world could someone want to do that? Why? What would it take to take someone there? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it took to send me there. In 2017, I got married to a man who I thought was a good man, who had some troubles, but I thought he had gotten through them. Over the course of our very, very short marriage, things got pretty bad pretty quickly. He became abusive, violent towards me and in front of my child, my oldest son. When I became pregnant, the violence got much worse, as it often does. He eventually went back to using drugs, which he'd had a past history of. And then when I was 7 months pregnant, he left. And as bad as it sounds, at that time, my whole world came crashing down because I was not brought up in a home where divorce was looked upon as a good thing, no matter what the circumstances. And I found myself at home alone with an 8-year-old and pregnant with another child. Over the next couple of years, we ended up in a custody battle. Sorry, not the next couple of years. Yeah, we ended up in a custody battle over my son Samuel. And then in August of 2020, I quit my job as a nurse to stay home with my 2 boys because school was out and my older son was home and my younger son was just a baby, about 1.5 years. In October, I lost my best friend. We had a falling out and we're no longer talking. And then in December of that year, I had an argument with my family over Christmas, and they were no longer talking with me also. So I found myself at home, alone, 2 boys, no family support, no friend support. I was not involved in a church. Hadn't been since childhood. And then on Christmas Day that year, I was lonely, heartbroken. My older son had gone off to spend the weekend with his father and stepmother, and I was just home alone with Sam, who was a baby at that time. So when my ex-husband called and asked me to bring Sam over to visit, I said yes. And I ended up staying overnight there. And then in the morning, I left with a lot more than I had bargained for. In late January, and this is 2021, I found out that I was pregnant from that Christmas trip. I was horrified. I was already a single mother of 2 children, and the thought of bringing a 3rd one into the situation was terrifying. It was the middle of the custody battle, with no family support, no friends, running out of money, not currently working. I was depressed, I was terrified, I was alone, and I agonized over what to do until eventually I made the decision that I thought was the right decision, that it wouldn't be fair to bring another child into that situation. So I called up Planned Parenthood, and I made an appointment for Friday the 19th of February to go and to take the abortion pill to end the life of this child. I didn't want to take my son Sam into the office with me, so I called my dad and asked him to come with me, to stay outside with my son. When the day came, he didn't show up at my house. I called him desperate because I really didn't want to take Sam in with me, and I said, "Hey, where are you?" And he said he had forgotten, but he was downtown Winston-Salem, and he would just drive over and meet me there since he was closer to there than my house. So when I got in the car from my house with my son Sam, I prayed for the very first time in a very long time. And I said, you know, God, I don't know what to do. I know in my heart that this is wrong, but I don't see a way that I can get through this. And I said, you know, if you don't want me to do this, I need a sign. And I need it to be big, and I need it to be immediate, and I need it to be right now. So on the drive over, I got behind a car that had a pro-life bumper sticker on it. And, you know, in the back of my mind, I thought, well, could this be my sign? And I said, no, this isn't it. I said I need it to be big, and I need it to be unmistakable. So as I was pulling in, I saw a group of ladies on the sidewalk, and I didn't pay much attention to them because I was really focused on what I was there for. I met my father in the parking lot, and he got in the car with my son Sam, and I went inside the building, Planned Parenthood. And if you've never been inside, be thankful. It's incredibly cold. It is stark and barren. There's nothing on the walls. There's very few seats there in Winston. There is a woman sitting behind the glass, and the first thing she did was ask my name, which I told her, and the second thing she did was ask for $500. And I suppose I was a bit naive because I didn't realize that this was something that they charged so much for. I thought, you know, I'd always heard of Planned Parenthood growing up, that they had fundraisers, you know, they had support, and I thought that this was just kind of a public service. Well, I didn't have it. I had been out of work for quite some time and still struggling to make it through. So I told the lady I would have to reschedule, and so she rescheduled me for the following Tuesday to give me the weekend to come up with the money. When I came out and got back in the car with my dad, I was panicked. I was just an emotional wreck. It was already bad enough having to come here, and then having to be sent away to have to come back again in a few days was daunting. So my dad said that he had talked to some ladies out on the sidewalk, and he thought I should go out there and talk to them. And that shocked me, because my dad is not really a social person. He's not one to stop and talk to anyone that he doesn't know, and let alone talk to someone he does know. So for some reason I found myself saying, okay. So I drove around and I parked close to where these women were standing on the sidewalk outside this clinic. And I got out of the car and they motioned for me to come over, and as I started walking over there was a group of 4 women that came towards me, and they surrounded me. And their names were Christy, JC, Stacy, and Lindsay. And I always joke now and say that it was my circle of E's, a play on the word E-A-S-E. It's really hard to describe what that moment was like and to give you an accurate picture. But for someone who was in this crisis moment and all they needed was a friend or someone to talk to, just someone to tell them it was okay, these 4 women surrounded me with nothing but love. And it was like a sense of peace just totally washed over me, and I just knew that I was going to be okay. I didn't know what I was going to do, but they were non-judgmental, they were loving, they were kind, they were concerned. It was cold, and one of them got me a blanket out of the car and wrapped it around me. They talked to me about different options. They talked to me about the option of adoption. They talked to me about parenting. They talked to me about, if I had no other choice, that there would be counseling, that there would be, non-judgment and healing. And then one of them, Christy, asked me if I had a church, if I was attending church. And of course, I hadn't in many, many years. And I said no. So she invited me to come to her church. And again, I found myself saying, okay, because I just knew that this had to be my sign, that these 4 women standing here on the sidewalk couldn't have been a coincidence. So I went to church with her 2 days after that, on February 21st of 2021. And I continued going to that church. And eventually, I joined that church. And since going, I have since decided to keep the baby that I was carrying. I never went back to my appointment the following Tuesday. I rededicated my life to the Lord, and since then, my oldest son has been saved. He's now 12. My middle son has decided that church is his absolute favorite place to be, and he wants to go there every day, even when we don't. And my baby, my daughter, the young lady that just interrupted your service, was born on August 31st of 2021. And her name is Catherine Claire. And the name Catherine means pure. And the name Claire means a bright light. Because in this darkest time of my life, she was a pure, bright light. And so because these women had the courage to stand on the sidewalk that day, because one of them had the courage to speak out, I now have a daughter. I now have a home church. I now have friends where I didn't before. And I have gotten back in touch with my family, and I have found more support there than I could ever have dreamed. My mother, who hadn't been to church since we were teenagers, since I was a teenager, and now attends with me every chance that she can when she's not at work. I have found a friend, a mentor, and I have found family that is not made of blood. So I wanted you to know that that is sometimes what would draw someone to an abortion clinic. That is just one story of thousands, and I hope that can change your mind.
So Karen gave you her story, which is beautiful. We call it the Cinderella story because it really is just the perfect story of a mom choosing life and finding the church and the church loving her and rededicating her life to the Lord. But now that you have the happy story, I'm gonna just bash your whole spirit now and give you the other side. It is the Cinderella story, but it is the exception and not the rule. Unfortunately, more women choose abortion than not when they go in that parking lot. So my daughter and I that you met earlier, JC was the one that came up and read the statistics. I had gone to a Love Life walk back in 4 years or so ago. A friend invited me there, and at the end, I knew I needed to do something more. And a Love Life prayer walk, I should probably explain what that is. So Love Life is a nationwide organization, and they do prayer walks outside of some of the larger, and I say larger meaning larger in numbers. The facilities are not ginormous. And so they have prayer walks. They will meet and they will pray and kind of walk at different locations, look differently, but they join in prayer outside of the abortion clinics, and they do those on Saturdays. They start in February and go through November. They do it for 40 weeks to represent the 40 weeks of a pregnancy. So I went to one of those prayer walks, and I knew I needed to do more. In the meantime, there were some things going on in our family personally, and we had left the church that we were at, and we were seeking a new church. And I'll give you all these details just to kind of let you know how God just put everything together. So we left the church we had been at. We were heartbroken. We did not, there was some church hurt. We really did not want to become involved in another church or active in another church, but we didn't want to be out of church. So I had said to my husband, we will go, we will sit on the back row, I will listen to preaching, and we will leave. I do not care to befriend anybody. If any of you have ever experienced severe church hurt, you might can relate to that when you are just so hurt that you don't want to take the chance on being hurt again. So we were visiting this church in Salisbury, and the preacher, who, unbeknownst to us, had just gotten voted in right before we started visiting, preached a pro-life message and preached about the pregnancy center in the area and preached different things. And I looked over at my daughter, who in the meantime, we had gone to the Love Life walk. We felt like we needed to do more, and another friend invited me to come to the Winston-Salem Planned Parenthood, where they stand out and try to reach women. So I looked over at her when the preacher preached the message, and I said, that sounds so much like a Love Life message. I wonder if he even knows they exist. So after church, I approached him and told him that we had been going to the sidewalks of Winston and that we'd gone to the Love Life walk, and he had no idea that existed. And so he was kind of interested in the fact that that's what we did, and I was blown away. In the years that we had been in church, my husband and I had been faithful churchgoers since before marriage in '97. So I was blown away by the fact that in decades, I had never sat under a preacher that preached a pro-life message. That just doesn't happen these days. So we were really fascinated by that, met with him, told him what we were doing, and so he made the comment that maybe one day in the future, we could have a pro-life ministry here at the church. Again, I still did not know at the time that he was brand new. Maybe we did know by then, I'm not sure, but it was all kind of taking place at the same time. So my daughter and I continued what we were doing. I say that is the only good thing that I know of that came out of COVID for me in my life was when COVID came about and the schools started closing. My daughter was a sophomore in high school and said, can I just homeschool the rest of, because going to school with masks and sitting away from her friends and not even seeing some of her friends. So we started homeschooling, and that freed her up to go with me on Fridays when I went to the clinic. So she started doing that with me, and I was still teaching preschool at the time, Monday through Thursday, so I could only go on Fridays. So I had been shadowing for about 6 or so months with some of the ladies there, just going and listening to what they said, but I had never called out, I had never spoke to anyone, I had never done any of those things. Excuse me, I have a tickle now that I'm up here. And so I prayed one morning. I prayed that God would give me boldness. I said, you know what, Lord, I've been doing this for quite some time now, and I've had no interactions with women. It'd be really nice to do that. If you could give me boldness, that'd be great. And my daughter and I were down there, and the other 2 ladies that were with us that she mentioned had to go to the other end of the street for something. I don't even remember what. So it was just JC and myself down there, and this car pulls in, and it was a gentleman by himself. We thought he was an Uber driver there to pick up or drop off someone. And so I started talking with him, and I didn't even know what brochures to hand him. I didn't even know what to do. So we were just giving him one of everything. We just kind of threw all kinds of things at him and put him in the passenger seat, and he let us know that it was his daughter that was there. And I said, well, we would love to speak with her. Maybe you could get her to come down here and talk to us. He said, she's not gonna talk with you. Her mind's made up. And he alluded to the fact that family was upset with her. She didn't have anybody, and so I pleaded with him and said, if there's any way you could get her to come out and talk with us, that'd be great. And so some time passed, and a different vehicle was coming down the road, and one of the ladies said, I think that's her. And I said, her who? And he said, the daughter from earlier. And I said, no, that's not the same car. Well, it was the daughter. And so she pulled around and parked at a doctor's office there, and as she already told you, she came over and spoke with us, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what to say. The good Lord just let me talk, and I just rambled on with her. We all rambled on with her, I think, and when I asked her where she was from, and she said Salisbury. I said, I go to church in Salisbury. You want to come to church with me? And I looked at one of the other ladies and said, is that okay? She said, you just keep doing what you're doing. It's fine. And so she said, sure, she was going to come to church with us. And maybe the rest of you are more spiritual than me, but you know how you pray for something, but you really don't think God's going to do it? So in the back of my mind, I was still thinking, she's never going to come to church. She just said that. And we went to church Sunday, and I met my preacher, and I told him, I said, remember you were talking about with that ministry, like that might happen sooner than you think. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I can't say any more than that. Which, of course, he just kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And that Sunday, she came in. I think it was the very same Sunday. And my daughter and I were like, she's here. And she stayed for church. And so when when people asked how we knew each other, we just introduced her as our friend from Winston. They didn't need to know her story at that time. And she kept coming. And so she finally, in her timing, said, I think I need to tell your pastor how we know each other. So she met with them, a preacher and his wife, and let them know how we met. And when the preacher came out, he finally understood what I was saying and said, yeah, I think it's time that we make this official. So Karen and I got together, and we tried to come up with, I wanted a Bible verse that would speak to everybody, not just those that had chosen life. And so we got together and looked through different verses in the Bible, and we settled on 2 Corinthians 9:8, and God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all things may abound to every good work, because I wanted it to include every single woman, not just the ones that chose life. Because what we know is the ones who don't choose life suffer greatly. So, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, and I'm sorry. So we created a logo, we created everything that we needed, and we named the ministry Abounding Grace. And so Abounding Grace was birthed out of the encounter with Karen and myself. And we say that we are the answer to each other's prayers, because while she was praying for a sign and she was praying for something to happen to make her make a different choice, I was praying for boldness to speak out. And it's funny still now as we talk and like the things that come together. In 2019, that was the hardest year of my life thus far. No, this past year was, but 2019 was a hard year for us because in 6 months' time, I lost my grandfather, I lost my aunt, which really was not biologically kin, it was my mom's best friend, but my grandfather passed in June, my aunt passed in November, and then my stepfather passed in December. So we lost 3 people in 6 months' time. And what's funny is after Karen and I, still to this day, like when we started telling the story, I never knew her father wouldn't speak to people. Now that I know them and I've been around them, her father very much is an introvert. But he just stopped and talked with me that day like we had known each other forever. So it's kind of funny after she and I talked, the way that the good Lord just worked that out. But the blanket she talks about, again, it was cold, it was February. And the brick wall where we are, sometimes we would sit on that, and it's cold, it's brick. And so JC had with her and kept with her almost all the time one of the blankets that belonged to my grandfather. And so the blanket that she wrapped Karen in actually was my papa's blanket. So as she and I have started talking more, and just the God connections that happen there were just pretty amazing. So if you wonder why we do it, obviously this is why we do it, right? So that babies can be born, so that moms can choose life, so that moms can find redemption in the Lord. But not just for those moms that choose life, for those moms that don't choose life. And there are so many reasons, just like Karen stated, there are so many reasons that those moms show up. They don't feel like they have the finances, they don't have the family support, they don't, they want to go to college, they want to, all these reasons that the world tells them that they can't do this, you can't raise this child. And so they end up there. And I can promise you, when they go into the abortion clinic, they don't try to talk them out of anything there. They don't necessarily let them know. They don't know that there's a pregnancy center where we are in Winston, and strategically right across the street from us is Salem Pregnancy Center. So we're able to tell those women that right across the street they can give you free pregnancy tests, free ultrasounds. They will help you, diapers, wipes, clothing, all the things that they help you with. And these people don't know that these resources are available. There was a mom that we met last April, this past March or April, I'm sorry, and she was 20, and that's what she said. She was there. We called out to her that there was a free ultrasound across the street, and so she approached us and said, "Did you say free?" And so we took her across to Salem Pregnancy, and when she came out, she said, "I had no idea there were so many resources available." Her story, she lived with her mom. She thought her mom was going to kick her out and be angry with her. So we offered her some love and support that day. She was close in age to my daughter, actually, and so my daughter was able to talk with her as a peer, someone who had some things in common with her. And that night, she texted us asking us if it was okay to eat sushi, because that was one of her favorite things to eat, and she wanted to make sure it wasn't going to harm her baby. So she went from the abortion clinic that morning thinking of ending the life of her baby to that evening making sure she didn't eat anything to harm her baby. She talked with her mom, and while her mom was disappointed, her mom did not kick her out. And back in September, I was able to go to her baby shower, and her mom, both moms on both sides had shirts that said grandmother, and they were so excited. And that baby was born a little early. She was due in October, but she was born in September, and they're doing amazing. And that family has just rallied behind her. And that's what we see so many times, is the families that they fear are gonna kick them out, actually those babies end up bringing them closer, just like with Karen. So for those that don't know, there's two types of abortion. And I know some people wonder why we're still doing what we're doing, because people are under the misconception that when Roe v. Wade was overturned back in June, that made abortion illegal. That is not the case. For those that don't know, what that did was it just took the decision from the Supreme Court and put it back in the state's hands. And I make no apologies for saying this if this offends anyone, but right now we have a very liberal governor running North Carolina who is very supportive of abortion. And our state, for those that don't know, has actually paid for billboards to be at the state line. As you're coming in from South Carolina to North Carolina, there is a giant billboard that lets you know that North Carolina is a safe place for you to come and have your abortion. He has said out loud that he will continue to fight for what he calls women's health care and continue to make North Carolina a safe place for abortion. So the fight is still very real right here in our own back door. In Winston-Salem alone, we see the numbers have increased lately. We see Tuesdays, they're open until 6. We're usually there. They open from 10 to 6. We're usually there from 10 to 2. In that 4-hour window, we have started seeing closer to 40 abortions on Tuesdays, 40 clients. And Fridays, anywhere from 20 to 25. So we are seeing roughly 65 or so abortions there, and that does not count for the hours that we're not there on Tuesday evening. So probably closer to 75 a week. And that's just in Winston-Salem. That does not account for the hundreds in Charlotte as well as Greensboro combined. So we're thinking right now monthly in the Triad area between Winston, Charlotte, and Greensboro, in that area, there's about 450 a month is what we're thinking right now based on our numbers. North Carolina did change the laws to where there is a consultation that's required 3 days prior, and that is now having to be done in person. So some of those people going into the abortion clinic are there for an in-person consultation, not their actual abortion, and it gives us an extra chance to catch those women coming and going and let them know that that's not their only choice. There are 2 types of abortion for those that don't know. As Karen stated, there is the abortion pill. And what I'm about to say is graphic and ugly. And again, I make no apologies for that, because I've had people, when I talk with them, put their hand up and say, oh, I can't hear this. I don't want to hear this. But here's the thing. We can't, as Christians, say that we're pro-life and against abortion if we don't even know what that means. It's easy to say that. It's hard to hear what it actually is. It's harder to think that the women that go through this have to experience what it is. So the abortion pill is a pill that they take in office. A medical staff watches them swallow the pills, and that cuts off the progesterone, which is the life support to the baby. So within 72 hours, the baby starves to death. There is a second pill that they take, a second set of pills that they take at home that cause them to have contractions and give birth at home. The abortion clinic tells them they're going to pass their pregnancy tissue. They don't refer to it as a baby, of course. And we know from women who have gone through this that they actually pass their baby at home. It's not a clump of cells, it's not a clump of tissue, which we already know that. But these moms are terrified and mortified and traumatized because they actually see their baby. Some of them have woken up in puddles of blood because there is profuse bleeding at times. And they wake up and they see a baby that they can hold in their hands. At our table back there, if you look, there's a little silicone baby, and the women who have actually gone through this process have told me that is very similar to what they're holding. They hold a baby, they see a face, sometimes they see fingers and toes, and they are left to dispose of their baby, most of them by flushing it. So they live the rest of their lives with shame and guilt for that. The other is the surgical abortion, where they can go under anesthesia, but if they don't have anybody to bring them, if they're alone in their world, they have no one to come with them, the abortion clinics do give them the option of having that done without anesthesia. So they are awake for that process where they use suction. There's nothing to numb the baby or anything to help that baby. The baby is suctioned out usually piece by piece. And that's what our governor, that is what our state supports. And that's why I know a lot of times in the pulpit, preachers don't want to talk about politics. We don't want to mix politics in church. But it is extremely important for you to be aware of your leaders in your state and what they support. Because as Christians, we should all be mortified by that. As Christians, we should not be okay with that at all. That's not health care. That baby did nothing wrong. You will hear people say, what about the cases of rape and incest? We know statistically that makes up about 1% of the population. And I can tell you what we tell women is the pain of abortion is not going to erase the pain of rape. So I can come to you and say that as a rape victim myself. I did not get pregnant, but I can promise you that without being pregnant, I still dealt with that, and still to this day, 30 some years later, have issues with that. And so when women use that, or people say that as an excuse, that abortion is not going to take away that pain. It's just compounding that. It's just adding another pain on top of that. So Roe v. Wade was overturned. It is still legal in North Carolina up to 12 weeks, unless you say that you are raped, and then they will go up to 20 weeks for you. That's 5 months. At 5 months, you can go to the doctor, you can have your ultrasounds, you can find out if that's a boy or a girl. At 5 months, you can feel your baby kick. At 5 months, you are showing. And they will go up to 24 weeks if there is a medical issue. And let me just reiterate that, again, our government, the terminology for medical issue can be a plethora of things. If mom is depressed, if mom says, hey, if I carry this baby, I'm gonna be suicidal, that counts. So it's not just that there's something medically wrong with the baby. And understand, there is no such thing as a medically necessary abortion. That is another lie that the world and the devil wants you to believe. There's no such thing as a medically necessary abortion. If there is a medical issue, that mom needs to be in the hospital where she can be monitored. They can induce labor. The baby may not survive. The baby may not be at a viable age. But that baby is not ripped apart from its mama's tummy while it's still alive. That baby is given a chance. So there is no such thing as a medically necessary abortion. So while these may be some boring things, they are still things that you need to be aware of as voters, as Christians. We need to know what these things are so that we can vote for our leaders that will take responsibility. You heard some of those statistics that my daughter read to you. I want to read some statistics to you specifically about Down syndrome. I don't know how many of you, raise your hand if you know anybody with Down syndrome or have been around anybody with Down syndrome. And those are just some of the most amazing people in the world. And so they will tell you that their life matters. And if you've been around them, you know their life matters. But that is one of the main diagnoses that they like to target for women for abortion. And I can't tell you several people just in my small circle who know someone, if they weren't themselves told, they know someone who was told, your baby has Down syndrome, you should abort, and guess what, their baby's born fine. And statistics show 1 in 10, 80% of diagnoses. So a mom is told, hey, something's wrong with your baby, he's not gonna make it. 80% of those, when they carry them to term, there's nothing wrong with their baby. It was a misdiagnosis. So how many of those babies were aborted and there really wasn't anything wrong with them? So some new statistics that came out in America, 67% of children diagnosed with Down syndrome prenatally are aborted, over half. There are countries right now that are eradicating Down syndrome. And they're bragging about that. Iceland is one of them, but they are bragging about the fact that, hey, we don't have that, and they're making it look really good because, hey, there must be something they're doing right. It's because they abort 99% of the pregnancies that are Down syndrome, that they think are Down syndrome. 85, I told you 80%. The most recent one says 85% of prenatal diagnoses are false. And so just so you know that, a mom that's told something's wrong with her baby and has an abortion is you don't know that. Give that baby a chance. And so we're there to let them know all of those things. The things that they tell us, that the doctors told us it's not safe for me to deliver, and things that they come there not wanting. Like, people have this misconception that these women are coming in there happy. Most of them are not. We do every once in a while get the mom that cusses us and laughs at us, but most of those don't want to be there. They feel like they don't have a choice. They feel like they have no way out. And unfortunately, what we know is 1 in 4 women have had or will have an abortion. 1 in 4. And half of those women were in church. So what that tells us is, and we know this from personal stories, 2 of the women that recently just went through healing for their abortion told me both of them were in church, both of them were raised in Christian homes, but they didn't think they could go to the church because their church was going to judge them for that pregnancy. Obviously, we know that sex outside of marriage is a sin, but that pregnancy, that baby, is not a sin. And so these moms feel judged and they feel like they can't come to their church family and let them know about this pregnancy. So they end up at the abortion clinic and they have an abortion. And then they struggle with the guilt for the abortion and they feel like they can't go to their church family and let them know about the abortion because they're going to be judged for that. These women have carried this for 20 and 30 years. Felt like they couldn't serve in the church, felt like they weren't good enough to sing in the choir, felt like they weren't good enough to help in the nursery because they took the life of their baby. but they took the life of their baby because they felt like they couldn't go to the church in the first place. So that is what you can do. Not everybody can come to the sidewalk and serve, but we can all pray. We can all do better. We can all not judge that mama at the grocery store that's got the dirty kid on her hip while she's trying to do her best. Because maybe she feels shunned by the church. We can all welcome that mama, that 17-year-old that comes through these church doors 8 months pregnant. We can love on her. We can give her a baby shower, because that's not celebrating the sin. And that's a misconception that's in our churches. If we do that, that's celebrating the sin. No, you've got an amazing pastor here, and I feel like he and his wife are going to talk with that young lady and make sure she understands that what she did was wrong. But that baby's not a sin. That pregnancy's not a sin. And you as a church can come along beside her and give her a baby shower. You can babysit for her, maybe while she works or goes to school. And that is what's going to keep these women from going to the abortion clinics, if they know that they have a church family that will love on them, that won't judge them, that will help them, that will support them. And that's where you all come into play. If you feel led to come to the sidewalk, I would love to see all of you there. But not everybody feels that desire. But if you can't, then on the backside, you can be one of those churches that makes a difference. Instead of a girl running to the abortion church because she's running, instead of her running to the abortion clinic because she's running from church, she can run to her church. She can stay in her church. She can be loved on. You can be the mom she doesn't have or the grandma she doesn't have. You can be that for that woman. And we do know, like I said, that 1 in 4 women have had or will have an abortion. And we can connect women with post-abortive healing. Those women go through Bible studies and realize that not only can God forgive them, but they're finally able to forgive themselves. And they're able to walk in forgiveness and then help counsel other women. So if you are one of those women, please know that your secret is safe with me. If you know someone that has had an abortion and you want to connect them with me, you absolutely can do that. And we will get them the help that they need. Thank you guys for listening to us this morning and letting us tell you about the ministry.
Thank you, Miss Christie and Karen and JC. If you would like to give to support their ministry, I'm not sure if I should have put Abounding Grace on the box up here, but you can donate in this box up at the front. Let's pray now, and then Hannah has a song to conclude the service. God, we thank you for creating life in the world. We thank you for how you create life every day. Help us to support life wherever it is. Help us to fight against evil wherever it is. Help us do all that we can to make your will happen on earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I'm the news that nobody expected. I was never a part of your plans. I'm the reason why life as you know it feels like it's slipping through your trembling hands. others say I'm just an option, a mistake you can make disappear. I may not have a voice, but I'm more than a choice. I'm as real as the heartbeat you hear. So don't close the book on me yet. I've still got a long way to go. Empty pages to fill, and the best part is still down the road. Oh, I am a story untold. I am God's miracle in the making, proof that all things can work for the good. I am the finger